And let me just read. It says, the next day as they went on their journey and drew near the city, Peter went up on the housetop to pray about the 6th hour. Then he became very hungry and wanted to eat. But while they made ready, he fell into a trance and saw heaven opened and an object like a great sheet bound at the 4 corners descending to him and let down to the earth. In it were all kinds of 4-footed animals of the earth, wild beasts, creeping things, and birds of the air. And a voice came to him, rise, Peter, kill and eat. But Peter said, no, not so, Lord, for I have never eaten anything common or unclean. And a voice spoke to him again the second time, what God has cleansed, you must not call common. Interesting that God is having a conversation with him in the trance.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It says, verse 16 says, this was done 3 times, and the object was taken up into heaven again. And so now while Peter, verse 17, wondered within himself what this vision which he had seen meant, behold, the men who had been sent to Cornelius had made inquiry for Simon's house and stood before the gate. And they called and asked whether Simon, whose surname was Peter, was lodging there. Verse 19 says, while Peter thought about the vision, the Spirit said to him, behold, three men are seeking you. Arise, therefore, go down and go with them, doubting nothing, he said to him, for I have sent them. So it's interesting. God gave him instruction, gave him direction, but he also had conversation with him throughout this time where he's trying to show him something different. He's trying to bring something very significant to his attention. It's interesting that Peter's response was, oh, no, Lord.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
his response, right? So he was like, oh, no, Lord, I've never done. So immediately, he's defending himself. He's like, no, because, when you hear the Lord speak, you're like, and he's telling you to do something very contrary to what your upbringing is, your nature. But it's interesting, those facts. So I don't want to go too much further in that, but the basis of it, that the significant part is that the trance happened, and in the midst of the trance, God was instructing him. He gave him symbolism that he could relate to that time, and he explained the symbolism. Because when Peter says, when he was on the rooftop, he was hungry. And what came to him in his natural response to being hungry was something to eat. However, it was outside of the realm. So let's talk about hunger a little bit for a second, because hunger doesn't necessarily mean that God was trying to give him a vision of what he could possibly naturally eat. He was actually giving him a vision of something to shift the course of how he believed, which I think was very, very powerful. And he continued to give him direction, even going to the person's house ultimately, yes, to eat. But it's almost like God took this scenic route, you know what I'm saying, in terms of, well, I said scenic route for Peter, but in actuality, he was teaching him something in that moment.
Yeah, he was teaching him not to put God or put Abba Father in a box. That trance was, you understand, because of his response, he had put the Lord in basically a box. Which, can I say to you that if we look back at Peter was the disciple or the apostle that, he basically had his own way of, thinking, and the Holy Spirit had to constantly deal with him about the way that he reacted whenever God was moving. And so sometimes when God does give us something, whether it's through a trance, a vision, a dream, we can pigeonhole him. That's the point. We can pigeonhole God, in terms of our thinking. And so, Peter did that. That's why our yes, as a seer in this season and time, that's why our yes is so important. To be able to say yes to the Lord, even when we don't understand.
That's right. Be obedient first. I always say,
Yeah. So
don't try and think it through. Don't try and rationalize it, because the more you contemplate it, you're probably gonna disobey. Not intentionally, but you will, because you're just gonna be like, I, no, I don't. You're already prefacing and try and see what the outcome is going to be based on your own thing, and we can't do that, because God already. It's not like God is experiencing it right as it happens. It's already passed because He's already at the end.